Hi, my name is Chaim Guggenheim, and I'm the Vice President of Development for the Feuerstein Institute. In the coming few minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Feuerstein Method, what it is, who it is applicable for, and where it's being used around the world. The Feuerstein Method is one of the world's leading educational and learning methods. It was developed 50 years ago by one of the leading clinical and developmental psychologists of our time, Professor Feuerstein, who was a student and later a colleague of Jean Piaget in Geneva. What Professor Feuerstein did in essence is that he took one of the processes that we all know. We have done it ourselves and we are trying to give it to our children. And that is the process of learning. Now, when I ask educational specialists, teachers, headmasters, even ministers of education and other policymakers, tell me, what really happens when we learn? How does learning happen? So they all start to be a bit iffy, because learning is a process that is very individualized, very different from one person to the next. The greatness of Professor Feuerstein was that he took this amorphous process and succeeded to map it and to pinpoint to the micro processes, or what I call the buttons to press, that if they are pressed, make a person a good or a better learner. Now, there are many methods out there that teach cognition and teach critical thinking and so on. So what is the difference and what is the specialty of the Feuerstein method? Number one, the method is very well researched. Over the last few decades, countless master theses, dissertations, and books have been written taking Professor Feuerstein's work and documenting it. Also, we at the Institute have a research department and we continue to do researches in order to prove with evidence what the method actually does and how effective it is on the learner. Number two, the beauty is that this method is not dependent on any specific culture and on any previous knowledge. Why? Because what the method does is something really simple. If we take any of these, which we all know, and some of them are even used today in schools, any computer has hardware and software or apps. And in between, it has something that connects the two. It's called an operating system. Now, we human beings have an operating system too. We have hardware, which is our brain, and we have apps, which is our personality and our knowledge and our experience. And that's what makes us into who we are. And in between the two, we have something that connects the operating system. It's called intelligence or cognition. And we at Feuerstein have found out how cognition works and how it can be tweaked and optimized. Now, since every human being has a hardware, we work on a gamut of applications because all human beings are learners and can be and have to be efficient learners in order to operate and function properly. So the Feuerstein method broadly is used in three main areas. The first area is the area of education. Obviously, we're talking about a learning method. The second area is the area of adults and elderly people, particularly in elderly people where we see cognition slowing down. We call that, there are all kinds of names for it. There is MCI, mild cognitive impairment, and the onset of dementia. And if it's medically coupled, then we know it as Alzheimer's. And we found, and we are now researching, how we can reignite the engine, cognition, through learning, because also the older brain can learn and can learn better and through that function better. The third area is what we call clinical, which is when you take people that nobody believed could ever learn properly. People who have all kinds of genetic syndromes, autism, Down syndrome, Williams syndrome, and so on, and also people who have traumatic brain injuries and who need to be cognitively rehabilitated. And we have developed a lot of expertise about how to do that and how to make also these learners into efficient learners again, and through that into better functioners. But tonight, now I want to focus on learning in educational systems. So the Feuerstein method is applied to learners of all ages, from kindergarten right through university students, and of all learning abilities. So we're talking about learners that are very proficient, or children and learners that we want to not just be average or just below average, but to excel, to children and learners that have some kind of learning difficulty. And in that, for example, we also specifically deal with children with ADHD, which is today a very widespread phenomenon, with a prevalence of between 9 and 14%, depending on the statistics. We also deal with children that have more severe learning difficulties. So throughout the whole gamut, and what do? We teach them to learn. We teach them to think. Now, there are many methods out there that claim that they do that, and probably some of them also do it. What's the difference about the Feuerstein method? That we do it in a very structured way that can be easily reproduced, and that it's done through the teacher. It's done through the teacher in the classroom, not through anybody else. We train the teachers, it's called train the trainer, and then the teacher, through his way of teaching, which is modeled on the Feuerstein way, it's called mediation, teaches the children how to process information properly, because that's what learning really is. Learning means that you're able to understand and take in information in a structured and comprehensive way, that you're able to process it right, to elaborate on it, and then that you're able to give it back in a very clear and adequate way. And within these processes, we teach underlying processes that are very important and critical in how information is dealt with. So we teach you how to, first of all, collect information systematically, how to understand what information is critical, how to compare, how to analyze, how to synthesize, how to raise hypotheses, how to decide which hypothesis is correct, how to deal in space and in time. All these are processes that underlie everything we do in order to learn, to think, and to function. Now, we're very happy that the educational system in New Zealand over the last few years has more and more taken on Feuerstein. Over the last few years, hundreds of teachers and educational professionals in New Zealand have been trained in the Feuerstein method. The method is being trained all over the world. We operate in 40 countries and have done widespread implementations in certain countries, sometimes even countrywide, such as in Bahia in Brazil. Also, we have a significant experience in how to work and integrate through learning populations that are culturally different. Because people who are culturally different think differently. So if we want them to think in a systematic, efficient, and effective way, then we have to train them those processes that underlie such thinking. And we have quite a lot of experience today of how to do that. So we're very happy that this is taken on now more and more in New Zealand, and we look forward to having this process continue. Thank you.